Right. Hello, everybody. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I am so fortunate to be joined by writer, producer, director, and the creator of the Child's Play franchise, Don Mancini. Don, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Nice. The pleasure's all mine, I guarantee. Now, I know we're short on time today, so I'm going to jump right into some questions about Chucky season three, part two.
Okay.
Um, the first one, though, is going to be around resilience. Chucky has survived across seven films and now coming on three full seasons of television, something that very few, if any, slashers have done before. What do you think has kept Chucky so relevant in the pop culture, mindset for so long?
Well, I think it's a number of things. I think one thing is that our franchise has an unusual amount of continuity and coherence since the inception of it back in 1988. We've been adding on to the mythology over the years and bringing in different characters, and they're all played by the same actors. And we get to see, what they're doing in their lives now, decades since they were first introduced. And I think that there is just it's inherently interesting,
Yeah.
so I think that's part of the reason for its sustained relevance. Another thing we always try to do with each movie or each season of the show is we try to make it radically different every time, give it a different flavor. That may say as much about my own attention span as a person, but I think it's worked well for the franchise. I think that that's one of the reasons it stayed relevant. And I also I think the actors are all, Brad and Jennifer and Fiona, all they're now the kids. They're all great. And I think that's one of the things I really liked about doing it in television is that it allows you to get into characters and relationships on a deeper level. And I think that the actors have really stepped up to the bar and really sold that really well. And I think that they help, you know, people wanting to come back and see what happens.
I think you're absolutely correct. The continuity is probably the best of any franchise. And in regards to the actors, people show up to horror because they care about the people.
Yeah,
Sure, the killers and all the violence that happens is part of the entertainment value, but to be sure, but it's the characters that people keep coming back for.
absolutely.
Um, as far as what fans can expect in part two, a lot of crazy things happen in part one. It seems each season gets a little bit zanier. So I'm just curious to know what are fans in for with part two?
Well, as we know, based on what we've seen and the cliffhanger, that we ended part one on, Chucky is dealing with his mortality. He's dying,
Right.
now. And as the characters in the show themselves say, well, wait a minute, is that really such a big deal? Chucky dies all the time and he comes back. But this is different. This one's different.
Yep.
There's something else going on. So I think fans, will get to see how that plays out. At the same time, Tiffany is dealing with her own existential crisis. She's on death row in Texas. That doesn't sound like it's going to necessarily end well.
No, it's a seven circle of hell.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing that fans have to look forward to, but also our new teenage characters, Jake and Devin, as we set up in the first part of season three. Jake and Devin are now that they're 17 years old, they're ready to take their romance to the next level, but they're constantly getting interrupted either
I
by,
know.
Miss Fairchild, their guardian, or by Chucky himself, or murders or whatever. So the path to romance is going to be rocky for them, but it is moving forward, so they have that to look forward to as well.
Well, I know a lot of fans are rooting for Jake and Devin to not get interrupted anymore and to continue their romance. And of course, just to see what happens with Chucky facing mortality and of course the Dumbala, entity maybe betraying him. So there's just a
Oh,
lot
and
going
also
on.
Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif himself is in the show physically. And I don't want to say too much about that, but it's related to the White House setting, and we've established that there is something else going on at the White House besides Chucky, and it's something that I've always been interested in for decades really was all of the lore about the White House being haunted. And I always thought that that would be an interesting haunted house to explore. So we get much deeper into that as well and how that affects Chucky.
That's gonna mean again, he's the first slasher to go to the White House, right? So that says a lot as far as what milestones are concerned. And I wanted to ask you, that we've got just a couple minutes left, is what inspires you these days in regards to thinking of new ideas and where to take the series? I know you mentioned you have kind of a varying attention span like so many of us do, but I'm curious to know where you're getting your inspiration from to keep coming up with great new ideas.
Well, I'm a fan as well. I mean, I love the horror genre. I love the Chucky franchise, and I spend a lot of my time thinking about it. So, um, I just am interested in pushing it further and further along and seeing, what we can do with it. So that inspires me. I'm also inspired by making the franchise queerer. And
Yeah,
we went to the GLAAD Media Awards last night. We were nominated for, actually, we've been nominated every season for
congratulations.
the Jake and Devin teen romance. And that was really important to me to do as a gay man, just to normalize that for kids. Because I know that when I was a kid, I would have loved to have seen
Yeah.
teenage gay characters that I could identify with. So that inspires me as well to to go further with that.
That's
I
amazing. Yeah,
think
I
with
mean,
the
it's
White House setting, like anyone, I'm scared about what's going on in our country politically
right.
right now. And so, in our Chucky, somewhat goofy, zany way, we do offer up a bit of political satire as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the love story is very tender, and I think that's what makes it very authentic in the Chucky season. So, congratulations on all the accomplishments, Don. It's been such a delight having this conversation with you. And for those watching, please make sure to check out the premiere of Chucky Season 3, Part 2, April 10th on Sci-Fi and USA Network. And Don, thank you again. We can't wait to see what else you're cooking up.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Nice to meet you, Matt.